All right, what is going on, everyone? And welcome back to the Mets Weekly Podcast as we are live at this very moment on YouTube and on X to recap the Mets versus Blue Jays series, as well as all of the latest news and rumors in New York Mets land. But before we get into that, I want to remind everyone to subscribe to the Mets Weekly YouTube channel for new episodes of our show that will now be recorded after every single series of games during the regular season. For those of you watching or listening on playback, you want to join the conversation in the future, make sure to turn on those post notifications to know when we go live. For those of you in the live chat right now, you're not being ignored whatsoever. We're just going to star as many comments as we can and try to pull up as many to keep the flow of the conversation going. For those of you in here, make sure to follow Mets Weekly on X and on TikTok, which mainly features Frank's instant post-game reactions after every regular season game. Those are titled the Mets Frankly post-game. For our audio listeners, make sure to follow us on all your favorite listening platforms to not miss the audio version of new episodes that go up at 9 a.m. the following day. Also, make sure to give us a 5-star review. That would be greatly appreciated. So without further ado, let's get into episode number 124. There is plenty to get into and a little bit of a time crunch for time because, of course, we have a new series starting up at 7 o'clock as we are currently recording this at 5 o'clock. But it seems like we have a decent amount of time frame to talk about this Blue Jays series, which the Mets come away with a sweep. Frank, of course, you've been doing your instant post-game reactions. You're back into the swing of things. It's been 9 games. Again, there's things that were good. There was things that were bad. But again, the Mets, as of right now, compared to last year, getting the job done, whether it's pretty or not.
It certainly has not been pretty. There are some things that do need to be cleaned up if they really want to go far with anything. There are some things that are concerning. And it's interesting how, mostly from the offense standpoint, because we're going to get to the pitching later, but really the offense is where this team is going to kind of make or break where they're going to end up going. There are players that we don't have high expectations for who are not doing well offensively. But then on the flip side, there are some players that we do expect to be very contributive offensive pieces, and we have not seen that just yet. So that is something that really I would like to see come around. It needs to come around because this team is assembled in a way where it is predicated on specific players being very productive for them. And if those guys are not clicking, then you lead to these games that are 2-1, 3-2. And it's something we'll get into a little bit, but while they're winning, the way that they're doing about it, I have some questions about the sustainability because they have a few pitchers who are really carrying the load that it's only 9 games. And you're like, okay, well, we're doing good. We're winning games. But when you say that there's 150 games left, then all of a sudden it's like, well, I don't know if those pitchers could withstand that for the 150 more. So I have a lot more when we get to that, but it, like you said, hasn't been pretty, but the main thing is that you are getting wins. I feel like that definitely is a big thing, is that if you told me that, okay, well, we know Lindor's getting to a slow start and Soto's been all right, but you also tell me that, okay, Vientos is struggling and like so many guys are not performing well, and you say, oh, but the Mets are still 3 games over 500, I'd be like, really? So, I mean, that's definitely a good sign that if you're winning, even without your top guys doing well, I mean, there is something very positive about that too that you feel good about.
Yeah, of course. They went on to do a lot of these stretches last year where they were getting like nothing from parts of the lineup. And it was the top of the lineup. The bottom of this lineup, we can talk a little bit more about it specifically. I mean, to be honest, there are 2 guys who were expected to be everyday starters that are not here at this current moment and are rehabbing and nursing injuries. But for the time being, you're going to have this pitching hold this up. And like you said, I don't know how many times you can bring these certain workloads, even though they have a decent amount of guys in that bullpen, minus 1 guy right now at this current moment that I do trust to go out there and give us quality innings and give us quality pitches. But again, there is a little bit of concern of how this can hold up, even though there has been a really good amount of performances. A few things that I have seen from this pitching staff that makes me hopeful as compared to last year. Obviously, the walk issue, it's definitely been down as compared to this. The base runners have been limited enough, especially from the bullpen. There's a lot of different things that you can pickpocket out of here and, that do need to improve on, because this does not look like a finished product team that's ready to win a World Series right now. I'm being a little bit patient in that way, but also pointing out some things that do need to be cleaned up eventually if they're going to actually sustain throughout the stretch of the season. And like you said, where there's some workloads from some of these guys who are going out there and carrying a lot of the weight, specifically the bullpen. The bullpen is pitching an insane amount of innings because we've had, like Stanley is saying right here, I'd like to see a starting pitcher go at least 6 innings. I'm pretty sure that's only happened once this year. I think it was David Peterson against Miami. David Peterson yesterday, he was not able to go that 6 innings because of some peculiar stuff, which, we can get into from 2 different angles, because, again, I was at the game yesterday and I didn't really see as much of the context up close of what happened with that whole situation with David Peterson. It seems like he's fine right now. But from what we saw from Carlos Mendoza, he said that he was feeling nauseous just like at some random point after he threw a certain pitch in that 5th inning. And then there was just some, moments to catch his breath, and then they leave him in. I don't know. Again, I was a little bit at that current moment that they were leaving him in, because I was seeing a lot of people on Twitter saying it, like, if he's hurt, why is he still pitching? He should be coming out of the game. But then I'm like, okay, he's staying in the game, so he's probably not as banged up. So, and then it ended up just being that he was nauseous. One thing I will say, when we were talking about, what was going on during that game, I will say they did have a little bit of a spotlight on him at the game, and his face was bright red after they left the mound and left him out there. So I didn't know what was going on. We obviously got the context of what was, but he just said, like, just immediately I felt like I was being punched in the stomach. So it was just very, very odd how quick that all went. And then, of course, him hitting the batter with the bases loaded, run coming across, didn't end up being that big of a problem because they end up winning the game in general. But again, the length from the starters, I'm hoping to see a little bit more of that from a guy like MIA coming back. And then once the pitch count limits get off of guys like Senga. But I would say from your angle, I don't know if the broadcast was talking about it specifically. It looked like to me, I don't know, like, initially, he looked like he was after that stoppage there. Like, every pitch that he threw, I think he threw, I don't know, was it 1 or 2 warm-up pitches or whatever? He was wincing a few times. So it didn't look like he was comfortable, and it turns out he wasn't. So.
Yeah, it was a very weird situation. I thought that he was injured, to be honest, just because I really just didn't know what was going on, especially like the way he kind of leaned over. I thought that maybe it was something in the side, because we know 2 guys on the team have an oblique. I thought it might have been a back. Obviously, we know Dave Pearson had hip surgery, 2 seasons ago. So yeah. I was wondering, like, could it be something in that area? But it ended up not being, and it was just very interesting to me that they were saying on the broadcast the entire time, gee, he looks uncomfortable. This doesn't really look like David Pearson. Oh, like, there must be something bothering him. Oh, he's wincing. And it's like they kept saying it over and over. And then even with the warm-up pitches, Gary's like, oh, yeah, he's coming out of this game. And they're saying, oh, he doesn't look comfortable. And then they say, oh, no, he's staying in. And then you see him walk the batter, and then they're like, okay. Well, now he's going to come out. No, it's just a mound visit. It's like, okay, and then he hits a batter, and you're like, what is happening here?
So there definitely was dialogue on the broadcast. So obviously I wasn't there to hear it. So again, yeah. So it was
because I don't
peculiar
think
from
he
that side.
threw
Okay.
a strike after that
No, I
whole
don't think
instance.
so.
I'm pretty sure it was
No.
like a walk on 4 pitches. And what was so weird to me is that we're talking about how he was missing arm side. Like, he really was struggling against the right-handed hitters in the Blue Jays lineup, which the Blue Jays purposely stacked a bunch of righties, but he kept missing outside to those hitters. And then he was doing the same thing following that, like, injury, nausea, whatever it was. He was still doing the same thing. So you're just seeing that happen over and over. You're like, wow, he really just does not look comfortable. And what I find so weird is that it's like, okay, he has nausea and blurred vision. And my thing is that if you're a pitcher, you kind of need your vision so you can see the plate and see where you want to throw, because I'll tell you what.
Major League had a whole thing about, what was it, Ricky Vaughn, he needed glasses, and he was so wild that he needed glasses. Like, this is a thing. You need your eyes to pitch. It's a thing.
Exactly. So if the pitcher can't see, why would he continue pitching? And you know what? With how much he kept missing and couldn't throw a strike, he looked like a guy that couldn't see. So it was just very confusing to me. And then today, Carlos Mendoza had his press conference, and they said, how's David Pearson doing? And they said, oh, he's good. Everything is all right. And they say, do you know, like, what caused that? And he's like, no. Like, that's not something that normally happens. It's really weird because, number one, it doesn't normally happen. And then now that it did, you don't know how it happened. Like, how do we know this is just going to randomly come back? So it was just, the whole situation was just very confusing to me. Yeah. And I would just say that, generally speaking, though, it's just not a good idea. If your pitcher is not feeling well, whether it's injury or nausea or blurred vision, they probably should not be pitching. And it was really interesting, too, is that they had Max Kranick warming up in the bullpen, and they're like, oh, well, maybe Hefner is coming out to the mound to give Kranick some more time to warm up. But then they mentioned the point that if a pitcher comes out via injury, the next pitcher gets to warm up as long as they need to. So you don't need to buy more time if you're taking him out due to injury or ailment or whatever it is, illness. Like, you could still do that. So, I mean, even that point was very confusing. And it's like, what bothered me the most, though, is that as he's pitching and as he's throwing his warm-up pitches, the broadcast is like, he really doesn't look well, he really doesn't look well. And Mendoza just stuck with him. Meanwhile, it was obvious to everybody, it was obvious to you, it was obvious to me that he should not have continued in that game. Yeah. And it was like, because Mendoza, it looked like on the broadcast, went to him, how do you feel? Do you want to keep going? And Pearson's like, yeah, I'm good. And he just goes out there and walks and hits batters. Yeah. It's like Mendoza totally let Peterson make the decision, and then he just couldn't do it for himself. Like, if the pitcher can't see, just be a man, be the boss, and take him out. That's simple as that. Because now what you've done is you've had Max Kranick, and I guess we'll transition to that. He came through again, but it's like the workload that you're putting him in, the situations that you're putting him in, it's a lot on a guy that does not, especially a guy that does not have much major league experience.
Similar to the Reed Garrett situation last year.
And then we saw what happened. Reed Garrett was excellent beginning of the season. Yeah. He was so good that the Mets constantly used him that he broke down. He got hurt, and he was not as effective. Yeah. I don't want to see the same thing happen to Kranick because he just threw 2 innings the first game of the series, and now you're putting him into a bases loaded situation, get out of that jam, and then pitch the following inning when he had to do something very similar to that in the Miami series. So they're just putting him through this intense workload so early in the season. I just don't think it's a great idea. I feel like if you have a pitcher that's going really well for you, that's unexpected, you should try to maximize that by not overworking him and losing that effectiveness. Yeah. And what I also find very frustrating about that, though, is the last time we saw Danny Young, we talked about the whole Marlins blow up in extra innings. I don't think he even warmed up in this Blue Jays series. So that tells you that, like, Danny Young is so bad, he's almost unusable. So what that means is that you overwork the rest of the guys you do have. Now the other annoying thing is that Ryan Stanek also did not pitch in this series. Yeah. Meanwhile, Kranick threw twice. And Stanek's supposed to be one of your high leverage guys. So I don't understand why he wasn't used. So I just worry that, like, yes, the Mets won this series, that's good. But you just have to think about, well, the way they're doing it, Mendoza's almost managing it like big games. The fact that it's like, okay, we're avoiding Danny Young, we're overusing Kranick, we're overusing Brazaban, and it's like he's trying so bad to get the win of he's avoiding other players, and I just hope that it doesn't come back to bite them later on where these guys get hurt or they lose their effectiveness because of how much they're being used.
Yeah, I mean, there are other guys. Of course, we know that, Danel Nunez is on the way to rejoin the team eventually. We don't know when that's going to be. One thing that I will say, in terms of context, I think it was a mismanagement there by Carlos Mendoza. And listen, I've been a very big advocate for Carlos Mendoza. I think he's done a great job. I think the players really, respect him in that way. I don't think David Peterson just like walked all over him and said, no, I'm pitching this. But I'm just saying it's like giving him that sort of choice in the middle of April, the beginning of April. It's like, this ain't worth it, man. This is not worth it. I know that the bullpen, they didn't want to put so much emphasis on it, but they ended up having to do it anyway. We all know how this rotation is built, especially with the subtractions of injury with Montas and Mania, where, Mania and Montas, both of them last year, I think, pitched the most innings out of like anyone in this rotation. Maybe Canning pitched a little bit more.
Maybe you mean Sevi, right? Not Montas. Severino.
No. I mean, like of this rotation we have set this year, last year, their innings. So Mania, he had like, what was it, 181?
Yeah, he had a
Montas
ton,
had like
170. He made all the starts.
Yeah. So again, it was, you're not getting those sort of innings from those arms that you expected to go a little bit more 6-inning distance than 5-inning distance. So right now you're kind of stuck with, no, not stuck with, but you're kind of in a situation where you have Clay Holmes, who's adjusting to being a starter, Canning, who we know is going to be a 5-and-fly type of guy, even though he pitches a lot of innings and is relatively healthy. May have jinxed him there. Senga, of course, on a load management as of right now. So again, it's one of those things where like David Peterson's kind of looked at as the guy to go multiple innings and go deep into the game. He wasn't able to do that. We know I have a certain history with David Peterson. I've had strong opinions about him. I've come along with him because he has definitely developed into a very quality arm. So hopefully he's all right. And hopefully he's able to make the next start. Because again, we are kind of, dipping into the depth already with 2 starting pitchers out. We know that Blackburn,
technically 3 with Blackburn. Even though we don't love him, he's out too, because he'd be next man up. He's out too.
He still exists. He's kind of like the 6th man right there. And every year we seem to have Tyler McGill in this rotation. So because of some injury at the beginning there. So again, I was fine with, because when it comes to pitchers, it's a different situation of, they know their body better than anybody else. We've talked about this with Jacob deGrom. We talked about this with whether it was Marcus Stroman or talking about Max Scherzer or Justin Verlander. Like when they see something that's not right, they cut the cord or they're able to keep going. So I'm fine with David Peterson shaking it off and saying, okay, I'm good going through with this. I'm not okay with Carlos Mendoza kind of letting loose on it in the middle of April. I think the context is what makes this bad, because it's not even middle of April, the beginning of April. Like, you're 9 games into the season here. There's no reason to push this as strong as you can. If you get 5 innings, great. That's fine. And I feel like those reinforcements didn't have to be forced in, or the lack of reinforcements had to be forced in as it was, even though the bullpen has been great. Workload is definitely something to look out for. And it might be something that affects them towards the end of April or towards the end of May or something like that. I'm not trying to have a gassed bullpen by, the middle of May. It's something that I don't want to see. But other than that, we know that the bullpen has been phenomenal, and I do want to get into it eventually. But I do want to recap this series, obviously, even though we are kind of doing a little bit of complaining in regards to how it was managed with David Peterson. But in good news, because we need to kind of flip this positive, because some people say we're negative all the time. Whatever. But when we get on rants, we get on rants. Other than that, I do want to recap this series because it was a good series. The Mets did end up getting the sweep. They win 3 in a row. So let's get into all of these games specifically, which was the home opener where Tyler McGill got the start, and he posted 5 1/3 scoreless innings with 4 strikeouts on 82 pitches. The Mets would pull the plug after back-to-back one-out walks to Vladimir Guerrero Jr. and Anthony Santander. and hand the ball to Reed Garrett, who would finish up the inning with back-to-back strikeouts. AJ Minter would toss a scoreless seventh, and Max Kranick would continue his phenomenal start to 2025 with a scoreless eighth and ninth. On the offensive side, the big guy would remain hot. More on him later, following up with following a leadoff hustle double by Francisco Lindor, Pete Alonso would half swing his third homer of the year to right field to give the Mets a 2-0 lead in the first. Kevin Gausman would settle in from there, but would be pulled after a one-out walk to Francisco Lindor in the sixth. Toronto was looking for the lefty-lefty matchup, and they failed miserably. Juan Soto would plate Lindor on an RBI double to make it 3-0 Mets. Brandon Nimmo would plate Soto on an RBI double of his own to make it 4-0. Starling Marte would add to the lead with a sacrifice fly to make it 5-0 Mets. The top five of the Mets lineup would be responsible for all the scoring, driving in, facilitating all runs on just 4 hits to secure a 5-0 shutout win in the 17th home opener of Citi Field. Game 2, Griffin Canning would make his home debut and go just 4 innings with Toronto making him work all night. Just 1 earned run with 3 walks, 6 strikeouts on 89 pitches. After back-to-back base runners allowed in the 5th, the Mets would turn to Jose Butto, who'd allow that earned run to come across, being charged to Canning, limiting the damage to end the inning, but run into some trouble in the 6th as Bo Bichette would give Toronto a 2-0 lead on an RBI double. But on the offensive side, there really was not much for a while. The former Met, Chris Bassett, would toss 6 2/3 scoreless innings. The only bat that would get to him all night was Jesse Winker, who would eventually come through with a huge RBI triple to drive in Juan Soto and Francisco Lindor to tie the game up at 2 as part of a 3-hit game for Winker that also included another triple and a double. On the back end of another brilliant outing by Huascar Brazaban of 1 2/3 innings scoreless, and Edwin Diaz working around back-to-back base hits in the top of the 9th. The Mets would get to work in the bottom of the inning, a 1-out walk by Jose Siri, and that he would eventually take second on a wild pitch, a pinch hit single by Luis Torrens to set first and third with 1 out for Francisco Lindor, who would deliver the sacrifice fly to center field to win it for New York. And despite going 2 for 13 with runners in scoring position, the Mets would score 3 unanswered runs in the final 2 innings to secure the series victory in Game 2, 3-2. Game 3, David Peterson would take the mound for his second start of the year, as we were talking about, dealt 4 great innings, but ran into some trouble in the 5th after a leadoff double to Tyler Heineman and 2 out walks to Vlad Jr. and Anthony Santander. Peterson would surrender the only Toronto run by hitting Andres Jimenez with the bases loaded with that pitch, and that would end his day. Max Kranick would come on to limit the damage and close the book on Peterson's day. 4 2/3 innings pitched, 3 hits, 1 earned run, 5 walks, 3 strikeouts on 91 pitches. On the offensive side, the Mets would do all their scoring in the 3rd inning. Pete Alonso would stay red hot and open up the scoring with a RBI single to plate Hayden Senger to make it 1-0. Brandon Nimmo would follow it up with a sacrifice fly to score Juan Soto to make it 2-0. The Mets would get hits from Lindor, Nimmo, Vientos, and Senger would get on base twice. And despite going 1 for 5 with runners in scoring position, the bullpen would continue their brilliant start to the season to hold it. Max Kranick would come back out for the 6th and toss a scoreless inning with a strikeout. Reed Garrett would put up a scoreless 7th. AJ Minter would toss a scoreless inning in the 8th with 2 strikeouts, and Edwin Diaz would get the 9th, and despite hitting 2 batters in that inning, was able to finish it unscratched to complete the sweep of the Blue Jays with a 2-1 win in the series finale. The Mets are now 6-3 to begin the 2025 season, winning 4 in a row and 5 of their last 6 on the back of just 1 earned run allowed in 13 innings from the bullpen in this series. Frank, I will go to you as for your good and your bad takeaways. We got the sweep, but like we said, there was a lot of messiness, lots of craziness, lots of hecticness to get this thing done. But we obviously have that bullpen that has taken the full spotlight, which we will do a little bit of a deep dive into. But again, win is a win, I guess, right now in the middle of April, 6-3. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, the big thing was the stranding runners in scoring position. I mean, that was very frustrating. The one that stood out the most was Saturday. The 2 for 13, the 8 left on base. Jesse Winker really had to save the day there because there was just so many opportunities that the Mets squandered. They're down 2-0 at that point. So for Winker to get that 2-run triple, he just missed the big 3-run homer going lefty-lefty. That was really nice to see. What I didn't like, though, was that Winker has that huge hit off of that left-handed reliever. His name's Little. Little pitches the very next day on Sunday, and they pinch hit Winker for Marte, who does not come through. So I'm like, if Jesse Winker just crushed this guy the night before, why wouldn't you let him face him again? I know they don't like Winker facing lefties because of his career splits and things like that, but still, I'm like, well, I mean, why not give another shot? Because it's like we always talk about, is that just because somebody is left-handed or just because somebody's right-handed does not always mean that that is the right decision. Sometimes the best players should play. And, that's just kind of how I felt with the way Winker is. And, Marte, he's been so hit or miss because the playing time has just been so inconsistent. Like, you see this guy get a couple ABs a week, maybe a start a week. Like, Winker, he should just be playing consistently. I mean, I just feel like that's the way it should go.
I hate to butt in here. It's almost like having Starling Marte. It's like kind of obsolete. Who's been saying this entire offseason? That's so weird. Like he was going to play like 1 every 10 days. There's no way that was going to happen. That's insane, Frank. That's nuts.
Yeah,
wow.
They didn't get to build the platoon the way they wanted to. Obviously, I mean, they did try to trade Marte. It didn't work out because they knew with re-signing Winker, he's a guy that strictly faces right-handed pitchers, but you were not able to move Marte to then sign that right-handed hitter who actually does really well against lefties, specifically with power. So since they couldn't do that, they just kind of inherited Marte for one more year. So that's just kind of the situation that they're in. We knew that. We talked about that the whole way through. So, I mean, that was just another piece that was a little frustrating. But I feel like the infield has just been very interesting outside of Pete Alonso offensively. Like Lindor, he had a much better series against the Blue Jays than he did in Miami, and he did against the Astros. I mean, at one point he was like 3 for 6. He had led off game 1 and game 2 with doubles. I mean, he was doing a really good job of setting the table every time, but they just weren't really cashing it in, even though Lindor was put in a position to grab a lead early and they weren't able to do it. So at least he's doing his job as a leadoff man. And I will say for Lindor, even though he's having his usual early season struggles with his, March, April, cold weather, all this other stuff, what I do like about Lindor is that he's not really striking out. I mean, the one thing that he has done really well in is you saw it in this game and you saw it in another game, the sacrifice fly opportunities, he's been money. I mean, because he's putting the ball in play, even though they're not hits, even though he's not hitting the ball super hard or super far, he's doing what he needs to do.
I mean, one thing I will say in this series, he definitely got
he hit it better. He hit it better, yes. But and he's using the whole field a little more. I think that's more encouraging too. Yeah. We've seen Lindor struggle in the past where he's overswinging, falling to a knee, too much uppercut, and then he's just striking out. At least now he's just taking that approach of like, you know what, if it falls, it falls. If it doesn't, at least I hit it outside the outfield. And it's kind of interesting that the Mets he hasn't really faced much left-handed pitching at all. Like, when was the last time we saw Lindor bat right-handed? So I feel like that's also another thing to kind of consider as he's working his way through his usual early season slump. So even though he's slumping again, it's definitely not the worst we've seen from him. So I do think that at least that's something to be slightly encouraged about, and you feel like he will get it going as the season goes along. Yeah. But the other infielders, Beatty, I mean, really struggling, and Luis Angel Acuna will be starting tonight, even though the Mets are facing a right-handed pitcher, and it's been a struggle for Acuna too. So they're just hoping that one of these guys
hasn't really gotten as many chances as Beatty so far. So
he has not.
It's like, and I'm not advocating for Acuna, like I've said before, but it's like, I mean, I don't even know. I don't even want to get like full onto it because we're already like a half hour in already. And this topic can just continue. But I mean, I don't know what to say anymore at this point. Like, this is who he is. Like, it really is just who he is. And if he wants to, even though he's not going to get the playing time today because he's been so god awful, this is the exact same thing. This is the exact same thing that we have been seeing throughout his entire major league career. Not his spring training career, not his AAA career or the lack of AAA that he got, because that apparently is some kind of excuse for a 25-year-old at this current point. But his minor league career, whatever, this is who he is now. This is what Brett Baty is. I don't know what to say anymore.
He hasn't drawn a walk yet. I feel like that's pretty alarming too. I mean, even Acuna's drawn a walk. Even Jose Siri has drawn 3 walks, and he's someone who is a terrible OBP guy who does not walk. He's walked 3 times, and Baty has not. He's striking out a ton. He looks lost at the plate. He's late on the fastball. Even too many times with 2 strikes, he's taking strike 3 called. So he doesn't look like he has much of a plan right now. Not much of an approach.
Here's some numbers for that, because I do want to put it in here. James Shiano from the Mets Up Pod, he put this out that Baty has taken 21 plate appearances this year, and in 9 of those he has fallen behind 0-2. He has not been ahead 2-0, 3-0, or 3-1 once. It's just an awful approach from every single pitch that this guy is facing as of right now. It's just like, again, it's just not competitive. It isn't competitive. And for the fact that he's not even batting 9th, like he's not in the 9 position. He's getting a decent amount. Like he's getting that bottom half of the middle third,
so,
like 7th, 6th. Like he's getting a decent amount of plate appearances. And it's just not, it's not translating because, again, the hitting tools that he has had, that he showed at the major league level against major league pitching, it's just not good enough. It isn't good enough. It hasn't been good enough. And listen, I don't say this to be an asshole. I don't say this to be mean or bash my own player or root against my own player. This is just the truth. All right. We play our intro before we start our show every time. And it says, our podcast is from brutal, honest Mets fans, because we're brutally honest this way. We're not saying it to be assholes. We're not saying it to troll or anything. Straightforward. Brett Baty's not a major leaguer. He isn't. And maybe he proves me wrong tomorrow or whatever. But again, even if it does happen, like, is that going to consistently go? And this is the thing. It's another topic that we can branch this off to, of how I see Mets fans getting upset. It's like, oh, Vientos is just as bad. Why are you guys so upset? Why are you not getting going at Vientos as much as Baty? I'm sorry. Did we not see the season that Vientos had last year that he actually proved in the major leagues in less time than Brett Baty? Like, come on. Like, this is the thing. Like, there's a certain standard here where Brett Baty has not shown anything at the major league level. Like, I don't even know what to, I don't know what to say anymore. Hopefully he figures it out somewhat. But like we have said, Jay is saying here in the chat from Twitter, saying, do we think the time is up on Baty? It's ticking, because we know that there's a certain someone who could be coming back in Jeff McNeil. And even though I'm not the biggest fan of Jeff McNeil either, Stanley's saying, where does he return when he is better than this? I mean, anybody with a brain could say that, no matter if I want to, troll Frank in that way or anyway. But again, McNeil, when he comes back, Stanley's saying, where does he play? He's going to play second base, because as of right now, you're not getting anything from that position. So I think, there is a certain someone that I prefer to be at the second base, but, beggars can't be choosers at this current moment, because, guys like Ronnie Mauricio, who I want to be the second baseman when it's all said and done, he's not ready yet. So right now, this is the reality that we are sitting in front of. So again, that bottom part of the lineup, it's not just Baty who's been bad. Again, they made some changes to it for today's lineup. But I mean, it's very
both catchers have been fine.
Yeah,
both catchers have been good. Yeah. They've been better than him. So I mean, you have
who needs Francisco Alvarez, right, Frank?
I mean, listen, the Mets catchers are in a much, like I said last episode,
Yes.
they're in a much better situation this year than they have been in previous years. That is for sure. So, I mean, that's encouraging to see. But also, even the combination of Siri and Taylor, even though Siri does stuff occasionally, it's still not quite enough when you have that combination of Beatty, Acuna, and Vientos. And Vientos, he's really going through it. I've never seen him visibly as frustrated as we've seen him. We saw it the other night against the Marlins where he's just kind of throwing himself in the dugout. Yesterday, after one of his strikeouts, he was really just like kind of muttering to himself, just kind of throwing everything, all the equipment down, just like, what is going on right now? So mentally, he's definitely showing that he is frustrated. He knows that he's capable of being a lot better. So we'll see. Like you said, he has more leeway because at least he had not only a great regular season, but also how amazing he was in the playoffs. So he's handled the biggest stages you could pretty much possibly have with flying colors. Beatty, once spring training ends, it's like the clock strikes midnight. So we haven't seen that yet. And like you said, he's gotten opportunities, and this is his I think his last chance. I thought last year was, but this year is like really his last chance. Once McNeil comes back, if Beatty hasn't shown anything, why would you keep him? Acuna, like we know, better, like we saw about better defense. He gives speed on the bases. He plays the multiple positions, plays second, short, third. We know Beatty doesn't play short. So it's like Acuna just has so much more going for him as a bench piece. So it's just definitely been frustrating. But like when you have those guys batting back,
like this is what I mean. This is what I mean. Like that. Yes, Vientos and Acuna have been awful, just like Beatty. That's true. But again, at the major league level, Vientos at the major league level, in a totality, he was great last year. One of the main reasons as to why we made that big run last year. So we have faith that he can get it going. Acuna, haven't really seen much playing time from him. Last year, showed a decent amount in 14 games. So we kind of need to see him play. And this is the main reason as to why I didn't like having Beatty and Acuna being the platoon in the first place. But again, that's a different story. With Beatty, his entire major league career, he's been terrible. He hasn't been good. He's been, as when he's gotten the regular playing time and he's gotten that chance, he hasn't ran away with it. And he was supposed to be the guy with the biggest expectation. It's just, again, this is what we're seeing. It's not, me making it up and me saying I just don't like Beatty. This is what's happening. It's like this is what you're seeing with Brett Beatty. Like, I think this has already been established. He's 25 years old. He's not a prospect anymore. He was expected to be, the big one out of all the young kids, and he's progressing the least out of all of them. So I don't know what to say, because again, it's not even about the results with Beatty of like, okay, he's 2 for, what is he? 2 for 23, whatever.
2 for
21. Yeah. 2 for 21. It's not even about those results. It's the fact that I'm seeing the same thing. I'm seeing he's hitting the ball on the ground a lot. I'm seeing him whiff at every fastball, out in front and all the off-speed stuff, not taking competitive ABs. I'm also seeing him still taking the inside pitch to the opposite way. So he's getting jammed and popping the ball up. The only thing to hang your hat on right now, to be honest, I mean, I don't know. What is he like? They said he was like 68 percentile in hard hit rate. But here's the problem. Seeing including his quality of contact, ex-WOBA, this is what we like to use for it, he is in the first percentile. So what does that tell me? He's popping up and he's hitting the ball on the ground. So again,
you could hit the ball hard, but if it's on the ground, it's not going to do much for you.
Yeah, that was our whole thing with Eric Campbell. Remember that third base prospect? I mean, I'm not saying he's Eric Campbell. Maybe he is. Maybe he's worse. Who knows? But again, yes, the hitting tools have been shown as he has a quick bat. He hits the ball hard, but it's like, this is the same stuff. We're seeing the exact same stuff. And again, the only way that this can be promising is if he's making quality of contact, making these hard outs. Like I just said, a 165 expected weighted on base average. That's the worst. That is league worst right now. From what is it? How many batted balls that he has had?
Did you say 13, I believe? Yeah.
13?
Yeah.
13. So, again, I just, whatever. This is what, like, this is the same thing. And until we see something different, we can't say anything else, but I don't know if we have enough time to see something different anymore. I just don't. Odd Villain saying Brett Baty turning into Brett Baty again. I mean, we can go on forever about this because, again, there's a lot of anger that's gone towards me on social media about Brett Baty.
They came at me too.
Yeah, you've had some short end of the stick too as well from that. But it's like, it's not me, just insulting the player and saying I don't like him. And this is all for my ego. This is what I've seen in front of me. This is what I'm seeing from whether you're using the eye test or whether you're using underlying numbers. There just hasn't been enough promising at the major league level. It's just true. It's not me rooting against any of them.
Yeah, I mean, an on-base percentage below 100 almost shouldn't be possible. So, I mean, that's where he's at right now because he has drawn a walk. So, it has just been a really frustrating. And I'd say the worst part about it is that this is the worst that he's been. So, it's like, as a lot of times with a young player, you're seeing, okay, well, how are they improving? How are they progressing? This is the worst he's been. So it's like he's supposed to be getting better, yet right now he's worse. So, I mean, that's the other part of it, too. It's
also just shades of the same thing that we've been seeing at the major league level to me. Like, it really does. Because even if you were to look at these percentages at high value, because, like, tell me this isn't the same thing. Ground ball rate is about 58%. It's pretty much the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Chase rate is about, 32%. He is a career like 31% or what is it? Chase rate. Yeah. Oh, it's actually so 33%. And he is a career 32% chase rate. And, even with like first pitch swinging, I mean, there's so many of these different contact rates that are pretty much like the exact same thing in the same sector in this small sample size. So again, you just never know. I'm telling you right now, I think right at this point, it just needs to be established like this is basically him. This is him at the major league level. This is what Brett Baty is. Because I don't know how many times we can do this, especially when we have seen more from guys like Vientos and Acuna, guys like that. They've done more, of note in little time. I don't think Vientos is a hitting failure, like Game for War is saying. I don't think Acuna is a hitting failure because we haven't seen enough of him. Again, what we've seen from Vientos, he's had a pretty good major league career so far. I think that eventually he's going to snap out of it and he's going to be okay. I don't think he's going to get to the level he was last year, but he's going to have to make some adjustments. It's just going to have to happen. And I think that there is going to be a decent chance for him to do that tonight, and I will get into that in a second. But when it comes to, Acuna, we haven't seen much from him. With Baty, a lot of these issues were just like originally scouted from him. Like that, like he always had the ground ball issue. He always had, this very spotty stuff against this off-speed stuff and secondary stuff. And then he also, like that, that short, short swing that just like, it's very hard for him to, it's very hard to him to get to the ball consistently and actually give you solid quality of contact consistently. Vientos, I'm waiting on that because I've seen more from him. But again, I'm not liking it, and I haven't liked it forever. And then there's a reason as to why I did not raise the flag in spring training. I mean, I don't know what to say anymore when it comes to Brett Baty. Like, this is the same stuff. Like, it is the same stuff. The signs were there in spring training, personally, for me. He still was hitting the ball on the ground a shit ton. A lot of the pitchers he was facing were
minor league pitchers,
great.
and it makes sense because every time he goes to AAA, he puts up amazing numbers because he faces minor league pitchers. And the thing too is that the Blue Jays have a good rotation, But a lot of the guys on the Marlins that he's facing, and we'll see them again this series, they're not that amazing. Like, we still have not faced like the best of the best pitchers quite yet, and he's still struggling like this. So I don't think it's going to get better when you actually do face the Phillies rotation, the Braves rotation, the Dodgers rotation, the Padres rotation. Like, once you face those like really, really good pitchers, yikes! Because like you said, he can't get a half account against the bad pitchers. So I mean, how is he going to go against the good pitchers?
Oh, no, Game for War, I understand where you're coming at. This is a whole different topic about the hitting coaching and everything. We 100% agree on that. But with Vientos, I think that there's hitting tools there that can be applied, and he's going to be fine again. But it's just like, and then so this is another thing. M-Easy is making a good point here, where he's like, right now, who cares about Beatty? There's more of a concern with how Vientos is hitting so far. And listen, that's a good point, because we know that Vientos is more seen as a guy who could be a guy for the future of this team going forward.
Well, also, like we said, that's the other thing that's a problem too, is that when McNeil is back, Beatty is gone, but Vientos is still here. So it's like, Beatty is like, we're just trying to hope it when McNeil comes back, he can get it done. But it's like, Vientos, we're counting on you. So you gotta get it going, because and someone else mentioned it earlier in the chat. I think it was Ranger Central, that like the Mets not bringing in a veteran to push any of the young pieces. It's like, this is what we got. Like, it is Vientos, Beatty, Acuna. So if all of them don't perform, oh well, there's nobody else. Like, this is who you have.
And they had what was it? They had help from Jose Iglesias last year. They had help from with some of the defensive drills and stuff like that with Vientos. They had JD Martinez for Vientos there last year. I'm not saying they need to bring them back in order for them to play well, because if they need someone there to mentor them for the rest of their career, we're going to have an issue. But again, I'm just saying it's that with Beatty, there really was nobody that came up here similar to his type of play style, because we've talked about Gio Urshela before. We've talked about some other guys that we could bring in that can help a play style of Beatty. They never did that, of course, and it's kind of late it's too late at this point. Like, it really is.
Yeah. Vientos took advice from Carlos Beltran, and he always said the way that JD Martinez helped him, he did not mention the name Eric Chavez. So, I mean, that's another thing.
No one mentions Eric Chavez. Yeah. Again, like, we can talk about this so much. This is another topic for here, but every single praise of the hitting coaches, all I hear is from Jeremy Barnes. But again, Eric Chavez is a genius, so I can't establish anything else besides that. Speaking of genius, actual genius, with no sarcasm, let's talk about this bullpen, which has been phenomenal to start off this year. Now, who knows how it's going to carry out, and I feel like the results as of this point, it's nearly unsustainable what they are doing, how good they have been, especially with the workload of a 162-game season. But I do want to talk about how lethal this bullpen has been and how it could possibly be going forward. Because when you look at it from the lethal weapons standpoint of it, even though you have the results and tools from this bullpen, you've had an 8-man bullpen so far in these first 9 games. There's things that could be a lot better in the overall unit and the usage of them. Obviously, with Kranick and Brazaban getting over 7 innings of work already, we are getting a really good sample size from this bullpen, and it has been fantastic. And not to mention what it can be and how talented it is. I also have this section of stuff plus grades, which for those of you who are not very familiar with stuff like this, a lot of different characteristics as compared to the average in league average. So there's, spin efficiency. There is, overall velocity is there. There's overall pitch shape and movement, things like that. That all gets kind of, wrapped up into a grade, which is on a scale. 100 is considered the average. So, it's basically kind of similar to weighted runs created plus as for with offense. But if you look at it from the triple threat, of course, you have plus fastballs from Diaz, of course, like it's always been. A plus fastball from Minter in overall shape. A plus fastball from Stanek, Budo, and Kranick. Stanek and Kranick. Sorry. Anyways, and then, of course, the off-speed pitches and changeup and splitters. You have plus changeups from guys like Minter and Budo and Brazaban, which is his best pitch and has always been his best pitch. You have great splitters from guys like Reek Garrett, and I mean you have so many different weapons here, and all of this is via MLB Pitch Profiler. So guys, make sure to go check that out. MLBPitchProfiler.com. They do a great job, breaking down pitches of characteristics. Now, obviously, there's other grades like Command Plus and Pitching Plus of things like that, because Stuff Plus is obviously shown without a strike zone, and we all know we need a strike zone to succeed, especially with what we saw last year where the Mets were walking everybody. But again, the stuff is there and it can be applied. Not to mention, if you were looking at this list right now, you may notice there's a guy who has some of the best stuff, if not the second best stuff, behind Edwin Diaz, who's not even here yet, and that being Danel Nunez, who we know is just starting it off slow in AAA to ramp up as of right now. So it could be even better. Now, as for Denny Young, he exists at this current moment, and he's kind of a placeholder who's out of minor league options. But if you were to talk about from specifically the amount of sample size that these guys need to pitch at, all of them have plus pitches. All of them have MLB ready pitches, even with Brazaban having just one plus pitch as C graded as of this current moment. Who knows if it improves or not. Still 100 on the sinker. Doesn't throw his fastball that much, so it doesn't really matter as much. But again, these types of two-pitch guys or deep arsenal guys, I mean, this bullpen can be great. We haven't even mentioned Sean Reed-Foley, who's still with the organization, who has a phenomenal fastball and a great slider that he needs to learn how to keep track of it. It's all really just about making pitches, and I'm pretty sure Brandon Nimmo talked about, the bullpen workload in the post game yesterday. And he says all they need to really do is, it's great to see them making these pitches and they're all going to be filthy. Like, this is a deep bullpen. There's, options on the way. Of course, there's some guys in the minor leagues who have got some really good stuff that maybe could be bullpen arms down the line. But again, when it comes to the overall pitch refinement, some of these guys and these grades have risen as compared to last year. Like, they've improved. Again, small sample, who knows if it regresses or anything, but also it's also impressive to see a lot of these plus grades too when you're in an environment such as New York in cold weather, even though they haven't really played as much cold weather. They played 3 games in cold weather. Stuff plays. We've talked about this before. And I think that, again, the workload is a concern for what they're using as of right now. Frank, I will go to you on here, but it's just really exciting to see a team just kind of develop this deep of a bullpen, because even compared to last year where we had like 2 arms that were reliable in the postseason, what we have seen so far, this is a juggernaut of great pitching that we are seeing, and hopefully there is more to come.
I feel like it's just very interesting because I'm pretty sure I said this on the last episode too, but we talked about at the end of spring training, like, who's going to get that last roster spot. And we said, all right, it's probably between Kranick and Brazaban. Like, they were supposed to be maybe some of your worst guys because they were the ones that like are just barely making the roster. Yet, as you show in this graphic here, they are the guys that have pitched the most innings out of this bullpen. And the reason why they've pitched so much is because they've been so good. Yes. They've been lights out. So, that has been just really awesome to see. And the way they do it in their outings is multiple innings. So you're seeing like a 2-inning outing or a 3-inning outing, or, inning and a third, inning and 2/3, whatever it is. So when they come in, like, they're getting multiple innings done so that you're not using as many relievers per game, because you bring in Brazaban, he does 2 innings, or Crank does more than 2 innings. So instead of using 3 pitchers or 2 pitchers, you use 1 pitcher. So it just really helps kind of keep everybody else in the bullpen rested. I will say, though, I mentioned it earlier, but like, Stanek really needs to pitch. Because you're showing, who's gotten the most innings. Yeah, like, he's barely pitched. So that has been just really interesting to me. And then, when you look at the guys who have given up the runs, it's been Danny Young, who, as we know, was a disaster in that Marlins game. Minter gave up a couple. Budo gave up one. But then every other reliever, so that's Diaz, Brazoban, Kranick, Garrett, Stanek, all those guys have not given up a run. So, I mean, that has just been really, really awesome. And, not only has the bullpen been good, but so far the starting rotation, besides length, has been really good as well. I mean, everyone ERA's below 4. Most of these guys, outside of saying, everyone ERA below 3. McGill's at 0.87. And with that combination, as we know, the New York Mets right now have the best ERA in all of Major League Baseball. They have not faced the greatest competition, but the pitching has been really good against that competition, which is not always the case with the Mets. So I've been very encouraged by that. And like we've been saying, there is potential for this bullpen to improve because, to me, Daniel Nunez was their second best, and at some points in the season, their best reliever last season.
Yes.
And by all accounts, his stuff seems okay. So once he's healthy and used to the because David Stearns talked about it in the press conference today, but with when it comes to someone like Nunez, he's saying that, like, okay, it's much easier in these kind of environments where we're saying, okay, you're going to pitch one inning and it's going to be in the 7th inning, for example. Meanwhile, in the major leagues, you might pitch today, you might not pitch today. You might have a runner on, you won't have a runner on. You may go 2 innings, you may, there's just so many different variables for your body to get used to. You might work back-to-back days. Like, there's just so many different things that could happen. There might be an up-down in there. Like, you come in with a couple runners on, get the last out, then pitch the next inning. So, like, there's so many different things that could happen for a reliever. They're trying to get his body ready for all those scenarios. So you have Nunez in the mix. Take Danny Young out. They get much better. And then for me, something that I've been thinking about is Griffin Canning, who has been really, really good, but he's really not working deep into games. And it seems like once he hits like that 85 pitch mark in like the 5th inning or so, he's running out of gas and he's losing his effectiveness. I think that with the success the Mets have had with these guys, like long relief, middle relief kind of guys going multiple innings in Brazoban, Kranick, and Buto, if somehow they could add Canning as one of those guys too, I feel like that would also be a I hope that might be one more nice weapon.
I think you might need to add, at this current moment, I think you might have to add in one of the young guys for that to possibly happen. Like if you're talking about Tidwell or
once everyone's healthy, I mean, you could pull something off. Like you need to get Montas back, you need to get MIA back, and then you hope Christian Scott's here at some. Not Christian Scott. Brandon Sproat's here at some point. Christian Scott, you won't be seeing him obviously for the whole season. Yeah. So I'm just thinking that maybe there's an injury. I mean, it's going to happen. So if something were to happen, maybe Canning's that next man up in the bullpen. I feel like he could do a good job there. His stuff has been really good. He's been generating a ton of strikeouts. I mean, so that's really good. Griffin Canning right now, he's at a 9.3 strikeouts per 9. So I mean, that's been awesome. All the Met stars have been getting a lot of strikeouts. So a lot of these guys, that would be very good versatility if you could do that. They can make starts, they go in the bullpen for you, and you can kind of move these pieces around. And it's like we say, you just have to find a way to eat the innings throughout the course of the regular season. So whether some guys have to do it as starters or relievers or both, then that's how you get through the 162. So I feel like the bullpen has been very good. There are ways that it could improve in some ways, so we'll see. I mean, Kranick, he's the wild card to me because we just did not expect this at all. He's not someone we were talking about last year, so if he could turn out to be a huge piece for them as someone you were not expecting to be a contributor, that's going to be a big deal, especially in that role they've put him in. He's not walking batters either. So you put him in with the bases loaded, you put him in for multiple innings. He's one of those guys you put him in every single situation. A lot like the way they used Daniel Nunez last year. So it's like maybe he could. Then that's what I wanted to see from Stearns because this is what he made a career of doing in Milwaukee. These pitchers that you never heard of, especially in the bullpen, they just come in and they're amazing. If we start to see that now with guys like Max Kranick, then that would really be a huge piece for this Mets team. And like we said, the offense has not been great, but you get pieces like this in the pitching, you could go a long way because that's how the Brewers were built. They didn't have much offense, but they had great pitching, and that will carry you a long way. But the hitting is what will take you over the top. So I would like to see this pitching continue to do what it's doing, really. But again, it's like with Danny Young, it's just really important that they figure out what's going on there, because you can't just not be using him. I know he's not been good, but it's just in the 162, you can't be overworking all these other guys because Danny Young is not good.
I feel like he's just there as a body right now because he's out of options. And then I think it's going to end up being Paul Blackburn that replaces him on there. And yes, Paul Blackburn has not been fantastic as a Met. He hasn't been healthy as a Met. But again, that's somebody who can also give you multiple innings. Danny Young is just a guy who exists at this current moment, who is pretty much the stooge of the roster right now. Like, that's pretty much it. He's possibly been the worst performer out of anybody, I guess, as the pitching, because there's been a few awful hitters. But again, even for some of these guys that are in the organization in AAA as of right now, adding to this point of Stuff Plus and how things grade out. And listen, this graphic right here, this is just a piece of some of these underlying numbers of how things grade out. But again, we've talked about it, stuff playing. Danel Nunez last year, if you're talking about his arsenal, his slider, 113. His fastball, 125. You also could go to someone who also has had health issues, who's still in the organization, like I have said before, guys like Sean Reed Foley, who's also, if you were to look at his grades, his changeup, 118, his slider, 101, his fastball, 109. So again, like, you're seeing these being graded as above average pitches that need to be applied. Of course, they got to throw strikes because Stuff Plus, again, is calculated without a strike zone. But like I've said, the tools are there. And again, to have a good coaching staff, to have these guys to piece this all together the way that they have, it doesn't look great from the outside because, of course, going into this season, everyone's like, oh, this rotation looks like crap. Again, and I listen, I say this not in a delusional way, but I say this as for somebody who has proven it in Milwaukee, and we're starting to see it a lot. 3 words. We say it all the time on social media. Let Stearns cook. Let him do his job. All right. There may be some concerns. There may be some bumps in the road, but he realizes that there's 162 games. Sometimes you win. Sometimes you don't. It's all about being in the middle, being efficient. And that's what he has done as a member of the Mets front office since he's been here.
Yeah, I mean, it's looking really good right now. So we'll see, because like we said, a guy like Griffin Canning too, we were hard on it. I was really hard on them signing him. And if that's what I'm saying. So by some accounts, he was the worst pitcher in the American League last year. If you could turn the worst pitcher in the league to a really good pitcher, then you could solve just about anything. Yeah. So we'll see how it progresses throughout the season. But I mean, so far, it's been awesome. So let's see how it goes.
And obviously, the final stage is developing your own arms again. Mm-hmm. But that type of development. It looks like,
and listen, with the way McLean and Tong and these guys are rolling, they could be on the way to doing that.
Who knows? You just never know, and it's not really.
And Matt Allen, he's got some velo.
Matt Allen's back. Matt Allen is back. We don't have to talk to him as a rehab player. Fingers crossed. He did come back, and we actually have that on the screen right there. 2 2/3 innings pitched, 2 hits, one walk, 5 strikeouts. His fastball, I believe, was up to 98. He looked good. So after having 2 Tommy Johns, a nerve correction, and an internal brace, I'd say looks pretty good. But he's at age 23. So it's actually crazy to think that this guy's only 23 after all the shit that he's gone through in these last 5 years. So obviously we're rooting for him, and hopefully maybe we see him soon, but that's a little farther down the line because he's right now sitting in Port St. Lucie. I'm easy saying eventually these starters are going to have to go 6 innings. And listen, we've talked about this before. I think, we saw a lot of struggle even last year, even though the bullpen was not as reliable as it has been so far right now. Piecing this thing all together, we were seeing Severino and Minaya and Quintana a lot struggle to get out of the 5th inning, struggle to get to the 6th inning. So again, right now, I'm kind of looking at this as like April, like April into May. It's all about just piecing it together. And then, of course, the Mets rotation needs to get a little bit healthier and take the load off of the bullpen, which hopefully at that moment, they do get a little bit healthier. I don't know what the timetable is going to be, but we do have some timetables for some of these guys in terms of injuries. So, Frank, I'm going to turn this one over to you for the injury report. We have plenty of injuries to give you an update on that we have gotten over these past 3 days. So, Frank, I will swing it over to you for the injury report. Who's healthy? Who's not? What does the doctor say? What did the doctor order?
We got a lengthy report here. So starting off with Jeff McNeil. Mets second baseman took grounders on the field prior to Friday afternoon's home opener and has been taking swings in the batting cages. Mets manager Carlos Mendoza stated that the plan is for McNeil to take multiple days of live batting practice before returning to game action. The 33-year-old former batting champion is still recovering from a mild oblique injury that he sustained during spring training. Francisco Alvarez, Mets catcher, caught Kodai Senga's bullpen session on Friday afternoon and is taking batting practice in the cages for the time being. With the original 6 to 8 week time frame, Alvarez is on pace to possibly rejoin the Mets by the end of April, as the 23-year-old catcher continues to recover from surgery that he underwent to repair a fractured hamate bone in his left catching hand. Paul Blackburn, Mets right-handed pitcher, threw a bullpen session on Saturday afternoon for the first time since receiving a PRP injection to treat inflammation in his right knee. Mets manager said today that Blackburn is scheduled to throw another bullpen session tomorrow afternoon, as the 31-year-old is still on pace to return from the injury list before the end of April. Frankie Montas, Mets starting pitcher, started light tossing from up to 75 feet on Saturday afternoon. Mets manager specified that he is still early in Montas' throwing progression, as there is still no strict timetable for his return. The 32-year-old right-hander was placed on the 15-day injury list to begin the 2025 season due to a right lat strain that he suffered in the first week of camp. Daniel Nunez, Mets reliever, has made 3 appearances for AAA Syracuse since being optioned to ramp up for Major League play. Mets Carlos Mendoza stated that the goal is to see how Nunez recovers from different workload before returning, as he's tossed 1 inning, 2 innings, and 2/3 of an inning in each of his 3 appearances. The 28-year-old right-hander missed the entire second half of 2024 due to multiple forearm strains that he dealt with throughout the year. Luis Torrens, Mets catcher, was scratched from the starting lineup on Saturday night due to a right forearm contusion. However, the 28-year-old interim starting catcher entered the game later that night as a defensive replacement in the 8th inning. The Mets' hope is that Torrens will return to the starting lineup in just a couple of days while he's dealing with some typical soreness. So one other note to add on here, Carlos Mendoza today on his press conference was talking about...
Carlos Mendoza's saying a lot of things, isn't he?
He sure is. I mean, saying that 6 times in a row is not fun. But he also said today that with the way the weather has been in New York with the rain, that the guys have not gotten to get in all the drills and workouts that he wants them to. So there is a consideration that some of these guys might be sent back to Florida, particularly Jeff McNeil, so that he can get all the work in that they want and just get, do baseball things on a baseball field like as it should be. So we'll see how that goes. I mean, today, not the greatest weather still. I mean, this is April for you. I mean, the Yankees-Tigers had some snow. Yeah. So it's just that time of the year. So if they want to put these guys back in Florida just so they can actually get what they need to get done to get these guys healthy quicker and back on the Major League field quicker, then that's got to be the case. So I understand for the home opener, everyone want to get their introductions in, get their little wave to the crowd and all that. But, at some point, the main thing is getting these guys rehabbed and ready to go.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they can do as much as they can indoors. I know that they have their facilities, their batting cages or whatever. It's not going to rain every day, right? And they just toss something into the fire. Easy, we talked about Peterson earlier on in the show. He seems to be fine. didn't seem to be injury related. He seemed to feel nauseous during his start after throwing a pitch. Didn't feel nauseous before, didn't really feel nauseous after. Seems like he's okay. Mendoza said that I don't know where the hell that came from, so that's the only alarming part of it.
I felt nauseous watching all those walks and you're hitting guys with the bases loaded. So, I mean, we all kind of experienced that.
Yeah. That's rough. And you know what? I think
it's just part
I've
of being
always
a Met
talked
fan.
about my situation with Peterson, of course. And you know, this recent stretch, he wasn't walking many batters. Like the walks were down. And
Yep.
yesterday,
They're creeping back up.
live in front of me, I was at the game. He decided, I realized, Carson's here. Let me remind him of what I struggled with before I made that stride. So, anyways,
6.8 walks per 9 in the first 2 starts of the season.
Not great. Not great. Which again, I'm not a per 9 guy at the beginning of the year because, you know, you kind of need a 9 to make the per 9 make sense. But I think at this point, I would have taken him out. We said it already, but it seems like he's okay. We also had a little bit of a weird scare with, what was it, AJ Minter last series where he took like a tumble
He just
and
fell
got
on
a
his
balk
face.
or something.
Yeah.
It looks like he's fine, but it looked like a rough move from the eye to it looked like a rough tumble to take. Recovering from hip surgery. So I think it's fine. Ding ups happen. And speaking of Luis Torrens, by the way, like we said, he should be fine. But we did get notice from Carlos Mendoza that Tyrone Taylor is our emergency backup catcher. So again, it doesn't seem like, since he's saying that Torrens is going to be available tonight. So Hayden Senger, stay healthy, my man. Stay healthy. And also a good series by him against Toronto. He did really, really well. And speaking of, to wrap up this series, because I do want to get into a segment that everybody loves. It's our favorite segment to wrap it up. But before then, obviously, yes, we swept the Blue Jays, but congratulations to Vladimir Guerrero Jr. on his big extension. It was the richest a first baseman has ever gotten, so he will not be going to free agency. And we are going to end up being stuck with the certain someone that we're going to talk about in a second. But I think right now, from what we are seeing, we're good with that for now. Anyways, speaking of overall performances, let's get into everybody's favorite segment, that being studs and duds of this series. Now, there were some performances that were rough. There were some performances that were great. Like we said, the bullpen has been a big factor so far in their success to being 6-3 to start the season. But as for studs and duds, Frank, I will swing it over to you. Your stud for these 3 games against Toronto.
Yes, I will take Jesse Winker. I really love what I saw. Yeah. I mean, 2 triples in the same day, plus a double. And, you know, just being able to, like I said, get the hit with runners in scoring position, because, you know, prior to that, the team just going 2 for 13. You know, Nimmo wasting opportunities. Alonso went 0 for 2. Vientos went 0 for 3 with runners in scoring position. So it's like you have so many opportunities and you're down 2-0 in a game you really, really feel like you should win. And then for him to, you know, facing the lefty, which he normally doesn't do, and come through, hit another triple, was really just awesome to see. So I love that. And he got fired up, which, you know, this team needs some fire, even though they may drive you crazy. You need your Winkers of the clubhouse. You need your Jose Sirius of the clubhouse. You just need that little bit of extra energy just to help kind of get you through the 162, because it's draining. So you need those guys that can just kind of give you a little energy boost. So definitely give me Jesse Winker.
Yeah, I love Jesse Winker. Again, I think the guy's an incredible character to have around. And I think he's a solid player, of course, for what he gives you. He's not a superstar by any means, but he definitely helps deepen a lineup. And definitely with his plate approach, which, you know, it got off to a little bit of a rough start, but he definitely was. I mean, it was the Jesse Winker show in game 2, because if not, it was going to be the Chris Bassett show. Because the Mets were not really doing much, and Jesse Winker woke everyone up in that cold weather on a cold April night for this fan base, and that's what he does. I'm going to give this, of course, I feel like we're a broken record at this point because we've been doing this back since spring, but Max Kranick, I mean, what else can you say at this point? This guy is just working quick. One thing I will say is that there, and listen, this is just me being critical and me being the very, very, the small mind, the very tiny intricacies that I like to point out. I will say there are some sliders that this guy's locating that's making me a little nervous. But one thing I will say, the arsenal, again, the plus pitches, like we've said with this bullpen, working quick, throwing strikes, trusting your stuff. That's something that we apply. Again, slider, try to get more chases with it and not, get too much of the plate. That's been something that has been a little bit spotty with him so far that I have seen. So I'm just saying it's just, there's a vulnerability aspect in there, but he's been fantastic. We know that he has been. And again, giving you multiple innings in game 1 and 2. I mean, he's been great. Again, another product of this pitching lab that we've been talking about. We're seeing it on full display, continuing his great performance outside of spring training. Beatty, you hear that? Hear that? Yeah. See, I can be an asshole, but again, I choose not to. See, I was very nice. I said 33-year-old former batting champion for Frank, because I knew that he was going to be doing this. So I was a nice guy. All right. Was I nice? I'm not an awful person half the time. All right. Just, I have my moments. All right.
Yeah, you could have got me good by just putting something random in there, and I might have read it off. So thank you for putting something good. I do appreciate that. And as the McNeil fan club leader, our business is still doing well. Brett Beatty's, the doors might be closing soon on that fan club. They might have to, everything must go and file
just
for bankruptcy.
Just wait until 2026 spring training, though. Like you're going to be blown away. You're going to be blown away.
To make a comeback. Yes. So at least McNeil right now, we're hanging on by a thread.
Yeah. I mean, listen, one thing I will say, there is a point of emphasis of this platoon that we have seen from Brady and Acuna. One thing that they have done is make Jeff McNeil look like the better option so far. So again, that's good for the Jeff McNeil people. I'm not a fan of Jeff McNeil, but again, we know that he's going to be the starting second baseman when he's healthy. I mean, we established that. We knew that was going to happen. So anyways, speaking of duds, I think that there's a clear one for this one for like all 3 games of this series, I think. I don't know. Is he playing all 3 games? I mean, we already talked about him. I mean...
No. Acuna started the first one.
Acuna started the first game.
Yeah.
The last 2 games, very brutal.
Very brutal.
I think he had one hit. I think one little mushroom dunk hit in game 2.
Mm-hmm.
But no, Beatty's been brutal. We know that he has been brutal. I think we can unanimously vote that he was the dud of this series. Is there anybody else we can point? I mean, to be honest,
Vientos.
I was really... Vientos was bad, yes. I think I was... The 2 pinch hitting opportunities for Marte, I was pissed off at.
Yeah, I mean, he came away... I mean, that was the thing, too, is that...
Yeah.
So that game, I mean, it was just so frustrating. Yeah. Like, no one's doing anything good. Then it's like Vientos finally gets on. Beatty finally gets on. He said that one hit he gets, bases loaded, and Marte can't get there.
Thanks.
That was rough because you felt like it was game over right there because you're like, okay, here's our shot, and he misses that one. So
it's more of just the nitpicking of the situation that you're in, like we have talked about it before. This guy's making $20 million this year, and he's on the lower platoon side of a DH platoon. I mean, it's a stuck situation that I just don't like. I've talked about this forever. I'm just not a fan of it. I don't like it. And it sucks because at the beginning of his career, Starling Marte was one of my favorite players in this game. And I feel like I talk about him like I've always not liked him. But it's just the reality of the situation where it's like, this is kind of tying our hands here. Like it really is. And just using him in that small usage for the amount that he is making, for how it's being talked up. Paying $20 million for a good veteran presence is rough. Like, again, yes, we had Jose Iglesias and we had Martinez here, but they weren't making as much as Marte. And then listen, I know we have the richest owner in baseball, but there's situations like Marte where you get tied to these contracts and you have nowhere to go, and they end up being a platoon DH and not giving you any of the value, not even close of the value that you expect from the initial contract that you gave them. He was good with us. He's been a good Met, but it's a situation that stinks. It really is a situation that stinks. I don't know what to say. And it all just piles over when you see him with the bases loaded, the team's not hitting, and he hits a cue shot to the pitcher. And then, what was it, like 4 pitches, and he was down yesterday in game 3. And then he did drive in like the 5th run, I think. And I think people were saying like, oh, he hit the ball 110 miles an hour. I was like, okay, cool. But then I'm like, where'd it go? Like, it just disappeared. Like, it's not, and again, he's not playing that much. But I mean, to cater that, you can't really do that. And, this is the main reason as to why I was all in favor of that move to make for Hunter Harvey. But again, it's one of those situations where, even if he's not playing well, and even if you want to make the excuse that he's not getting the playing time, where the hell he's going to play? Like, we know that he hasn't been efficient against right-handed pitchers for the last 3 years. I mean, since that All-Star season he had in 2022. And then there's lefties where he barely plays. And then, I mean, you're going to sit Juan Soto to cater to the 36-year-old Marte? No, you're not going to do that. But anyways, so Beatty, Marte, but I think there is one other guy that we need to mention and give props to, and that, of course, being our first baseman. Yes, the Blue Jays got to lock down their first baseman. I know there's been talks about the Mets maybe going after Vlad. It's not going to happen. So other than that, we're stuck with Pete Alonso right now, who is one of the hottest hitters in all of the league right now, and he's been phenomenal. And yes, this is a small sample, and like I've said with the bullpen, what we were talking about, it's all really just more of what the tools that he is showing on display, because he looks like a completely different hitter than he has looked these last 2 seasons, where it looked like he was going to be a guy that regressed, and he's making us eat our words as of right now, as to what player that he is. Who knows if it sustains, but I do want to talk about Pete Alonso as, the polar bear that he is. The man's out of hibernation, and I'm going to show you the first 25 batted ball events that he has had. You are looking at 18 of them are considered hard hits. Hard hits have an exit velocity of 95 miles per hour. And you are seeing a very balanced hitter right now from Pete Alonso. Average exit velocity is at the level that Aaron Judge has done for his entire career. So I don't know if that's going to sustain. But overall, he is hitting the ball fantastic. Not to mention, you are seeing a lot of balls in the air. You're seeing a lot of line drives, another thing. 0 pop-ups so far. He has not popped up yet, which was something he was doing almost exclusively besides groundouts last year. And again, hitting the ball very, very hard, of course, like we have seen. I have not seen him hit the ball hard at this rate for a while, and it's been very, very refreshing to see. Now, obviously, of sustainability, he probably won't keep up this 1,000+ OPS that we are seeing. But again, with probability, and that little sector that I have in the bottom right there kind of shows you the difference, that there is even a little bit more to come as to some of the contact that he is making, the overall quality of contact. We obviously have hit probability, which is expected batting average, and 280, higher than his batting average at this current moment. Expected slugging is 746 at this current moment. And that is higher than his slugging percentage. And then the big one, which is something that we look at for quality of contact, which is, I mean, this is at an elite level. We talked about Brett Beatty being in the 1st percentile. Pete Alonso at this current moment to start off the year is at a xwOBA. And again, this is in colder April weather of he has a 487 right now. That says 465. So again, he is making phenomenal contact, and he is just being the polar bear that we know that he is capable of being. And it really looks like a very simplified approach. And I want to talk about that simplified approach as well, because he's totally locked in right now. Because I want to show you by zones of overall swing decisions that we are seeing from Pete Alonso, and the overall reach that he is giving, and some of the competitive swings that he is giving. The man just looks like the best hitter in the lineup. He looks locked in every single position. Now, obviously, these are different small samples, but all you really need to look at is the colors. And for 2024, swings by zone in the top left right here, you see over 200 swings in the bottom right corner of the zone, the down and away slider, which we know killed him all year last year. And as for compared to 2025, you are seeing a lot less swings of offering at that down away slider in the left-handed batter's box. Looking at swing length, we have talked about it, Pete Alonso has talked about it. We've seen some stories from Steve Gelb saying, I was reaching a lot. I was definitely lunging at a lot of pitches in the zone. Now, even if you are looking at it from swing length or just overall pitch selection in general, and overall plate discipline, Pete Alonso with swing length, Savant kind of calculates this. I think it's like the forearm to the end of the bat. So it's in feet how it is calculated. So that down and away swing length that he had, 8.0 feet of a swing length. So he was lunging a lot. The down and away this year, it's 7.9, which is a lot less. And not to mention with the tremendous bat speed that players have these days, that's quite a difference. Even though it may look like 0.1 in feet, it's definitely quite a difference. So even with the swings that he's taking, which have been 7 on down and away so far, he is definitely locked in this way. It's not just, the competitive or he's walking a lot or whatever. It's just the overall swings and the overall pitches that he is seeing. He's in full control at the plate right now. And who knows if this is going to keep up or whatever. But there has been a lot of adjustments that have been made by Pete Alonso, and he looks phenomenal out there. And this is the type of Pete Alonso that we know that he is capable of being. Frank, I will turn this over to you, of course. He's hitting the ball hard. He's making a ridiculous amount of contact. We've seen 3 homers so far. We've seen a couple of extra base hits. He for the more traditional fans, he's driven in 11 runs so far in these 9 games. He just has simplified a lot of things, and he just looks competitive. Like it's 9 times out of 10 he's putting up a competitive AB. And that's exactly what you want. And it's also something that I feel like we all expected he was capable of with a hitter like Juan Soto in this lineup, to kind of stretch things out and deepen it a little bit and protect him. So at this current moment, Pete's been phenomenal. I mean, he really has, and he's been the best hitter in this lineup so far. And I give full on credit to him. And it's been excellent. I mean, I feel like I'm looking at 2022 again, maybe 2019 if the weather gets a little warmer at some point, with the potential that he's hitting at right now. So it's been great. I've loved every second of it, what I've seen from Pete Alonso, because we all know that if Pete Alonso hits, this team is going to succeed, because there's a lot of pop in that bat.
I mean, the big stat for me, too, we talk about the approach and the discipline, 6 walks to 5 strikeouts. That's not something we see with Pete Alonso. So, I mean, that's a really good sign that, like you showed on the graphic, he is not chasing. He's kind of taking what the pitchers give him. If they're not giving him strikes, take your walk. If they're putting in the zone, crush it. I mean, like we say, it sounds simple, but a lot of players don't do it. They showed the graphic. The only 2 active players that have more walks and strikeouts is Luis Arias, multi-time batting champion, and New York Met Juan Soto, who's a legendary getting on base, good discipline, good. Like, players don't do this. So this isn't going to sustain for Alonso there. He is going to have more strikeouts than walks, but so far it is a really good sign that he is doing a much better job of laying off those pitches. And like we said, particularly that slider on the outside part of the plate, he's keeping his balance when he is swinging. He's not over swinging. And they showed the really good graphic I liked a lot was that he had the home runs that he has to right center and right field in general. Yeah. It's almost already equaled what he had of the regular season last year. So it's like he has that natural power that if they are going to be pitching me away, we'll just go with that pitch because you have the power to do it. Not everyone does. So a lot of guys like, oh, if I'm going to hit, I have to pull. But he is one of those rare players that he does not need to because of that natural power he has. So that's been really awesome to see. And, you know, like you said, you look at just all the other things. Pretty much every hitting metric you could want is 80 and up. A lot of them in the high 90s as far as his percentiles. You know, hard hit, barrel, bat speed. I mean, everything is just looking really, really good. So I've been encouraged by that. And then you mentioned the runs driven in. He's at 11. Next most is Brendan Nimmo at 5. So he has really been the guy driving in a majority of the runs for the Mets, which is what they want from him. That's what we expect from him. He's supposed to be the guy driving. It was the story
of last year too. I mean, let's not forget what he was doing with runners in scoring position. One of the worst. I mean, he really was. So again, it's something that I really do like. I mean, it's half and half in 2023. He was somewhat of himself, somewhat of not. 2024, we know it was not a good year for him to his standards. I mean, I'm looking at a Pete Alonso that looks new and improved right now. Will it sustain? Who knows? But this is what we know he is capable of. We know how much damage this guy can do. And we've talked about it before. You know, people have gotten on us for criticizing Pete Alonso and his free agency of everything he's done for this team. Again, we have said it time and time again on this show, even if we are tough on him or where we're establishing reality or whatever Andrew does, because he just likes to poke the bear in that way. But again,
poke the polar bear. Yeah.
The fact that we both thought of that, that's just okay. Anyways, but you know, we've said it all the time. When it comes to Pete Alonso, last year, you want your money, show up. You want your money, show up. Please, we are begging you, please show up. Please, for the love of God, please show up. Because we know we're going to win if he does show up. We know that we're going to succeed if he does show up because he's that impactful of a bat. When we didn't see that impact last year, they had to find other ways in that way. You had to see Mark Vientos, break out for them to kind of, make up for the production they weren't getting from Pete. We know Francisco Lindor had a career year. And of course, we know Francisco Lindor is capable of as the 5-tool star that he is. But again, it just adds a different measure. And bringing in Pete Alonso to back into this lineup and bringing him back and re-signing him, of course, you know, I'm not ready to jump on him and then say, okay, let's give him a 10-year extension because the Blue Jays just did it with Vlad. I'm not here to talk about that right now. But again, I've said it multiple times before. I know that it goes amplified of how Pete Alonso, you know, we had our criticisms, of course. But again, I've also amplified it enough where I'm like, I'm welcoming Pete Alonso back with open arms, but I need to see him perform. I need to see it. It's put up or shut up here. You know, we've gone past that point where in the arbitration years, he could have been extended. It's unfortunate that we couldn't do that because of the ownership that was here, but we're long past it. Like, that's it. This is different. It's a different situation now. We are, 7 years into his Mets career, and we got to see it. And we know that there's going to be an even bigger stage now with this team, having bigger expectations than it did back in 2019 or selling not selling you a bill of goods like they did in 2019, because I'm sure Brody Van Wegenen at that current point believed that this team was going to win the World Series because it was that delusional, and he's an agent and he's got to, make everybody, buy something that he's selling. But again, in terms of, how things go, Pete Alonso is a big part of this lineup. We know that Juan Soto is going to have a huge impact as well. We know that eventually he's going to be fine. I know it's been a little bit of a slow start for him. Lindor, we talk about this all the time. He starts slow. All right. And even though he had a good series in this series too, he looked a lot better. So I don't know if it was just the crowd singing My Girl for him and it got him going, but he's been a slow starter before. we're going to be fine. And if they're 6-3 with this offense performing like this, we all know that there's more that can be had. And obviously speaking in terms of record, we saw people earlier, talking about the Braves. I'm not waking up that sleeping giant yet. I'm sorry. I can't do it. If there's a sign that shows that maybe this is completely done, 1-8's not going to do it for me. I'm sorry. It's just the likelihood, the nature, trash talking the Braves. It never truly works in our favor. It just doesn't. I'm sorry. We're going to have to be a little bit more established in that way. It's still the Braves. That is still a team that is, 6 straight division titles. I mean, they're good. Like, they're good. They're still a really good team until proven otherwise. Maybe they're just not what they were for a second, but again, I'm staying quiet. I'm staying quiet. I'm not doing the small victory lap in this way. I'm not saying, no. We're not doing it yet. I'm sorry. I can't do it yet. I'm just going to wait it out. Maybe, who knows? Maybe we make them wake up when we play them. Who knows?
We saw the Nationals, obviously, a few years ago, plenty of games under 500 and then win the World Series.
19-31 to start the year. Won the World Series.
Still a lot of baseball left to be played.
Yep. 162 games, like we have said, with this pitching staff, with the hitting, with the health, piecing things together. Same goes for everybody else in this league. Braves have played 9 games. We've played 9 games. There's still plenty of games left. So I am not hanging my hat on the Braves being 8-1. Am I happy that the Braves are 8-1 because they annoy the shit out of me and they haunt my nightmares? Sure. But I'm not going to hang my hat on it. Sorry. And if you do want to hang your hat on it, go ahead. Troll your fellow Braves fan. It's fine. But, things can change at any point. We saw the Mets change very, very quickly. They were in the dumpster on May 30th last year. And since then, they rose up. I know that history is not on their side. A team that started 1-7 has never made or 0-7 has never made the playoffs before. But we know what that Braves team is capable of. And even with them not fully healthy, they made a bid for us in those final 2 games. They're still a good team. They're going to be around for a while. So they're good until proven otherwise. Anything else that you want to add in for this one? Because I do want to move on to the upcoming series that is going to start in about 20 minutes, 30 minutes. So we had to squeeze this one in to 5 o'clock because it was the best window for us. Obviously, with me going to the game, I kind of had to gather some things when I got back. So either way, upcoming series or series that's going to start in a few minutes as we're currently recording this. We have a 3-game set against the Miami Marlins once again, this time at Citi Field to finish up a 6-game homestand before we go out to Sacramento. I can't believe this. We're playing Major League Baseball in Sacramento, but that's a different story. Hi, Dad. Anyways, upcoming series preview. I do want to do a little bit of a rundown here. Kodai Senga gets the ball tonight. We don't know what the pitch count is going to be. Maybe it's a little bit higher. Maybe it's a little bit lower. And that will be at 7:10, of course, as we're currently recording this, in about a half hour. He will go up against Valente Bellozo, who the Mets, I think, had like 2-run ball over 7 innings against last year or something. He will get the start against him. That would be on SNY. All 3 of these games are on SNY. Clay Holmes gets game 2 against Connor Gillespie. That is not the Connor Gillespie that homered against us in 2016. Different Connor Gillespie. Clay Holmes going to be looking to go a little bit deeper into the game after 2 starts of 4 2/3 innings. And then game 3 will go to Tylor McGill, as he opened up this homestand, and he will close this homestand up against Max Meyer, a former prospect who has struggled to grab his footing in the major leagues. That will be on April 9th, and that will be at 1:10 p.m., like we've said, on SNY. And as for today, as we've seen it, let's get into the starting 9 that we have going into the game, since it's about to start. Little bit of a difference towards the bottom of the lineup because we know that they have not produced well. Beatty is on the bench after the struggles that he has had. Siri has struggled at the plate, so he is out. and Hayden Senger in there with Luis Torrens on the shelf for a few days. The top four is the same as it usually is, and then there is one point of emphasis with Mark Vientos that I said early on, that I said hold it on this discussion. I talked about this before the season even started, of protecting flaws, not just power protecting, making the lineup deeper. This is the way that I wanted to see Mark Vientos be protected from the very beginning, with two guys who can give you, before him and after him, that can give you competitive ABs and force the pitcher to give him more pitches to do damage against. For me, it's always about flaw protection, and it's always about creating the most damage. We know that Jesse Winker will give you competitive ABs. Brandon Nimmo will give you competitive ABs. Pete Alonso, apparently he's the most disciplined hitter known to man now. He's walking more than he's striking out. But again, with my preferred lineup, like I said early on, like weeks ago, I wanted to see the flaws of Vientos, because we know that there are, and there's a lot of chasing, a lot of swings and miss there, that I wanted to see them protect his flaws with guys who are competitive. And in that way, you have a guy like Brandon Nimmo, walks a lot, great pitch selection, and then you also have a guy like Jesse Winker, who walks a lot and has great pitch selection, has a great eye, and has shown that so far in this homestand. So again, I feel like this is the game, like this type of setup. This is a game where where Mark Vientos has an opportunity to break out of this, rough stretch to start the season right here. And I think that this would be the best way to do it. Again, it's all about the overall efficiency of this lineup. And then that bottom three, we'll see what we can get from them. Tyrone Taylor has not started for quite a while. Luis Angel Acuna looks like he's going to start getting a chance, with Beatty struggling. So again, this is the type of lineup similar to what I would do. Obviously, there is a little bit different of one little swap that I would make, but with Pete Alonso in the 3-hole hitting the way that he is, leave it as that. And then, of course, Brandon Nimmo has still been productive, even though he has not shown that full capacity that we know he's capable of. Frank, obviously, thoughts on the lineup, thoughts on this series. We'll get into the poll after you're done with your rundown of what you guys think going forward into this series. Make sure to vote on the poll if you have not yet, of what you guys think is going to happen in this series, whether the Mets are going to sweep, take 2 out of 3, Marlins take 2 out of 3, or the Marlins sweep. Let us know in the poll. It is still active. Frank, I will go over to you. What are your thoughts going into this series?
Yeah, I mean, they just faced the Marlins a few days ago. So, I mean, you're really going at it again. It's very interesting that the Marlins got rained out yesterday against the Braves. So Sandy Alcantara was supposed to pitch yesterday, but he is not pitching today because he's going on paternity leave. So now you have Belozo, whatever his name was, he's pitching today. So, you get him instead of Sandy. But what is very interesting to me is that Game 2 is a rematch of Game 3 from this past series. So, I mean, you're going to be going up against, like I said, Connor Gillespie, not the one that played for the Giants, and Clay Holmes going to be pitching against him. And this was that game that went to the 11th inning where the Mets held on. It was the game that had poor hitting. Maybe a word in front of that for those that recall. So it's going to be interesting to see them get another crack at it, because Gillespie, he went 5 innings of 1-run ball. So I am just kind of curious to see, now facing him a second time in the span of a week, to see if the Mets are able to perform much better. I feel like having Beatty on the bench and having Acuna face a right-handed pitcher, let's see how that goes. And the same goes with Tyrone Taylor getting a start, because for Siri, even though there's things I like, he hasn't been great though. I mean, he's still hitting like under 100 or whatever. So for Taylor, it's still open job.
Siri.
Yeah,
so Jose Siri, basically.
Because for Taylor, it's still an open job for him too. Like if Tyrone Taylor could string together some quality games like the way he did last season, it's still a job that he could win too. So I mean, you still have some guys that are out there really with something to play for, and that really trying to make sure that they're a starting player. So you have a little bit of that going on, some of these position battles in the regular season. So I am curious to see how that goes. And also, moving Vientos up I feel like that's an interesting call too. You normally with a struggling player, you might send them down, but to your point, it's going to give him some opportunities, and I feel like the hope is that like if he has guys on base in front of him, it might make pitchers a little less, not wanting to throw balls out of the strike zone, maybe give him more pitches to hit because he is chasing definitely a little bit too much right now. So if he has those extra opportunities where he has more pitches in the zone that he could make quality of contact with and feel a lot better about himself, get his confidence going, that would be ideal. So that's the one that obviously we're really watching.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole thing. It's the thing about this is it's not just about, doing damage in the zone. You also have to create it too. So again, when it comes to Winker, he's going to give you a competitive AB. Nimmo usually gives you a competitive AB. So sandwiched in between them, it allows them, in those situations where Vientos can get a lot of pitches to hit. So again, you also have this Beloso guy who does not grade out well. His stuff's not great, but it seems like he's more of a contact manager. But you're looking at the situation as compared to this that they have tonight. They have, of course, the bottom part of the lineup. We know that Vientos was a threat last year, so there still is hope that he could get it going. But who was behind him? I mean, even yesterday, Beatty was behind him. So it was like, okay, Vientos chases, so let's give him stuff to chase. He's struggling right now. And then also we can get out of this inning if we said B, if he walks, because Brett Beatty's here, and Brett Beatty is terrible. And so it's not like, that type of protection that doesn't, it doesn't really have anything to do with power protection or who's bad. It's all about just protecting flaws, protecting potential damage, protecting, things that, guys just don't well. And that's the best way to build a deep enough lineup. And I feel like it just wasn't doing diligence right now with Vientos, even though Vientos was in his head. There's a lot of things that he needs to do better. But again, I feel like there's going to be a lot more opportunities for him. So this game, I'm looking at Mark Vientos to get some of the job done. I'm looking at Vientos to start producing tonight because he's definitely in a good situation right now where he's sandwiched in between two very competitive hitters at their typical situation where they're walking a lot. They give you a lot of those where you can't pitch around them because they're not going to swing at them. So again, that's the type of formula, and don't be surprised if you see Mark Vientos break out tonight. I'm calling my shot. I'm calling my shot right here because, they say I'm similar to Babe Ruth, similar to the GOAT,
I see some similarities. I could see it. Yeah.
Not the similarities that any person would want, but anyways.
There are some.
Hey, I don't have fish and beer every night, so that's one difference between me and him. But there's a lot. But anyways, as for some predictions going into this series, I'll swing it over to you, Frank. But before, 39% of you are saying that the Mets are going to sweep and they're going to be 9-3 after the end of this. 56% of you are saying, which is the majority, saying that they're going to win 2 out of 3. 0% of you are saying that the Marlins are going to win the series, and 5% of you are saying that the Marlins are going to sweep. So maybe there's a few Marlins fans in here that are a little bit overconfident. So they can't
win the series, but they can sweep it.
Yeah, I don't know. One thing I will say before I swing it to you, that Xavier Edwards guy, that guy pisses me off. That guy is D. Gordon level. That guy is that type of pest. It's always those scrappy players, and then it's always that power hitter who's done nothing in the big leagues, but they just kill the Mets. That's always the formula of Mets versus Marlins. So keep that guy in check, please. Please just try. That's all I ask, because he had himself a field day in the first series. And he's had himself a field day against us since he's been with the Marlins. I think he was originally with the Rays or something. But as for some predictions, what are you going to go with? I'm going to go with that they take 2 out of 3 here, because the ball always just rolls the Marlins way. Some for one game, it just always happens.
Yeah, I'll say 2 out of 3. I don't want to get too crazy and be like, oh, let's sweep back-to-back series and win a whole bunch of games in a row. I'm not ready to go to that level yet. Even though, like we said, the Mets won that series against Toronto, it wasn't pretty. Even though they won that series against Miami, it wasn't pretty. I mean, even though the team has a good record, they're not necessarily playing great. So there are some things that just get going. Like if you told me that well, Soto's on fire right now, Lindor's hitting really well, and Vientos, like if they had everything clicking, I'd be like, okay, sure. But right now, they're just not doing that quite yet. But they still have enough to where they still win the series.
Yeah. By the way, an update on the catching situation. Tyler McGill's mom added in on the conversation saying that Tyler was a catcher till his freshman year in high school. And she says that it would be a fun 6'7" catcher. But she says it hope it never comes to that. So maybe Tyler McGill, add him to the list, who knows, of a possible emergency catcher. One thing that I can take away from hearing that, Francisco Alvarez, get well soon, buddy. That'd be nice, right? And say Hayden Senger, stay healthy today, because we're relying on 9 innings from you to be healthy. That would be great. Awesome. But anything else that I think that we can go over here, obviously with the series starting up in a few minutes, about 15 minutes, for those of you on Eastern Central Time, starts at 7:10. But overall, I guess the theme of this one is something that can be warranted at the beginning of the season. That being a win is a win. That's what they did in this series. It wasn't beautiful. There's a lot of things that they need to iron out. But overall, they are still finding ways to win. And like we said at the top of the show, last year they weren't playing well and they weren't finding ways to win. So we're seeing this team overcome a lot of their struggles to start it out. And it only just shows you of how well this team can perform at their very best. So hopefully it's a more of a sign. I'm hoping the hitting starts to pick up eventually. But I'm also giving the benefit of the doubt, or maybe I'm in some delusion saying, oh, well, it's just a little cold right now. It's got to get warmer. That's it. But again, still need to perform. There's still things that are unacceptable that we've seen from the offense. Let's aim for tonight. All right. With a new bottom of the order, let's aim for somebody to get on base in that bottom 3. How about that? Right? Just somebody get on base. Maybe 2 people get on base. Something like that. That's all I'm asking for. Set the top of the lineup for those situations. As we've seen, Francisco Lindor, these last 3 games, to start off the home opener series, he's been good. Soto yet to break out yet. He's still been giving you quality ABs.
He's reached base every single game so far, though.
He has. And that's the crazy thing. We haven't really heard much of, Juan Soto, the generational guy, because he hasn't been the Juan Soto, this past week since, the Astros series. He was great, but against the Marlins, against the Blue Jays, he didn't really give like the signature spotlight onto him, but he still was very productive. Like he drew quite a bit of walks. He was giving, like, that's the type of Juan Soto that you get at his worst. We're in pretty good shape when we see Juan Soto at his best, and we all know we're going to see Juan Soto at his best because that's what Juan Soto is. Or maybe he stole all that money from us and he's overpaid and he's a bum, as our friends from a certain radio station like to say all the time after seeing 2 ABs from a player or see them pitch 1 inning. The greatness of sports media, as we like to call them. But anyways, Frank, I will give it to you for some final thoughts. Obviously, we will be live at the end of the Marlins series. And we will let you guys know on Twitter for that. But for those of you in here, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Frank, any closing remarks going into another series, going into Mets baseball that'll start in about 10 minutes as we're currently recording this?
Yes, I mean, like I said, these games against the Marlins are very crucial. Especially with expanded playoffs, it's like, every game counts. You still have to play them with the same sense of urgency, but not to the extent that we talked about earlier, like Carlos Mendoza, like not using Danny Young and like overworking Kranich. So it's like I do want to see like Ryan Stanek be used some more. I do want to just see like some more guys, other bullpen arms be used so you're not overworking the same guys, lose their effectiveness. And then like you were talking about, the bottom of the order. How about this? Can some starting pitcher throw a pitch into the seventh inning? Can that be done? That is my big one. Can we make that happen this series? Because that would go a really long way. Because one of the things that's coming up, not this series, but once that athletic series starts, that's like, I think 10 days in a row where they're playing, because then there's no off days. So, this whole like starters not going deep into games and using a lot of the bullpen, that's going to be really, really hard to do once you don't have off days. So they got to start getting a habit of, let's get some life from our starters so we're ready for a big stretch of games like that.
One thing I will say, from the first two guys in this series, Senga and Holmes, even though we know Senga is going to be on a limited pitch count, I'm going to, make a safe bet here and say that Francisco Lindor is not going to have 2 errors tonight. Then that's not going to derail his start. So hopefully he can go a little bit farther the distance, because we all know that from the top of like those first 2 batters he had, Senga, he obviously had a few rough locations, but after that he was rolling. He was rolling with the forkball. They were swinging at it. They were chasing it. So hopefully we can have some better there. And then of course, Clay Holmes, can the defense do something for him? Just please, because the first 2, they've screwed him a lot. So again, it's all really about it being a well-oiled machine, as we like to say. It takes a team to win. All right. It doesn't just take a single person. Teamwork makes a dream work, as they like to say. And nobody, actually, to be honest, I was the first person to ever say that. Actually, that's my quote. But other than that, I think we're going to wrap it up here, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. We hope you guys enjoyed the live conversation. For those of you watching or listening on playback, you want to join the conversation live in the future, make sure to subscribe to the Mets Weekly YouTube channel to turn on post notifications to know when we go live. Make sure to follow Mets Weekly on X and on TikTok. It mainly features Frank's post-game analysis, which will be, once again, after today's Marlins game. So tune in for that. Follow all of us individually, including our third Mike, Andrew, who is not able to make it for this episode. I think he was just hiding away from the Pete Alonso success, because we all know that, they have a history. But anyways, we will turn you guys over to first pitch, which is about in 10 minutes. Kodai Senga on the mound once again against Valente Beloso. Great name right there. Mets versus Marlins. We will send you guys over to there. Of course, let's go Mets. And we will see you guys next time.